Hello everyone, this is Caleb Simpson, and you are watching my walkthrough for Chrono Trigger for Nintendo DS. So after rescuing Chrono and completing his side quest towards the end of the game, you can then complete all of the other characters' side quests as well. So each character has one, and you can find out more about them by speaking to that specific character here in the End of Time. So when you speak with Frog in the End of Time, what'll happen is then he'll remind you about a clue that we got from Gasper, the Guru of Time, here in the End of Time, and he talks about a mysterious proud knight ghost that is haunting the halls of a building that is in 600 AD. So that location is Choras village down in the far bottom right corner of the map. So you can head there in 600 AD. However, just a quick note, if you go there to 1000 AD first, you can get some additional lore by speaking with all the characters here and then going to the ruins to the north here in 1000 AD first. So the people in Choras village say that there is a ghost that is haunting the ruins to the north, and it's also been haunted and lain in ruins for centuries. So for a very long time, no one's been able to go there because it's dangerous, because it's all dilapidated and falling apart and stuff. So nobody can do anything there, but yes, ghosts are there and it's a bad time. There's also a couple interesting things to note. There is a woman here that says it's very exciting, the fact that it's haunted, and which kind of comes into play later. Her reaction is funny after the side quest is complete. There's also a dude upstairs who comments about how it's a beautiful day outside and the black omen just looks wonderful in the sky as always, which is a disturbing statement because that was not there a while ago, and yet, as I was talking about in the last couple videos, characters now, because they've always seen the black omen in the sky now, history has changed, and as a result, they just take it for granted it's just always been there. So when you're done messing around, you can go to the northern ruins to the north, and then over to the left you'll see the spirit that we're looking for. Now when you target him, it does in fact label his name as Cyrus, so this is definitely the person we're looking for. And unfortunately you can't actually do any damage to him with any of our techs or regular attacks, so either physical or magical. However, just so you know, you can actually damage him with non-elemental abilities, such as Ayla's Tailspin / Dino Tail ability, or like the triple tech Poyoza Dance, that will actually do some damage to him. Unfortunately, you cannot actually do enough damage to kill him in time, not that we want to kill Cyrus, of course, but you know what I'm saying. But anyways, it is just know that it is technically possible to damage him. I'm not sure if this is an oversight by the developers, or they just didn't care, or what, but it seems kind of funny, especially because this is the DS remake I'm playing. They fixed a whole bunch of things, and yet this is still something that's still in the game, which I find kind of funny. So just so you know, in Japanese culture, they have this belief that that ghosts have lingering regrets, and that's the reason why they're still here. So generally speaking, in a lot of like Japanese media and stuff like that, if the idea is if you can figure out what the ghost is upset about, or whatever the thing is, whatever the emotional regret thing is, you can solve the problem, then they will stop haunting stuff. So that's kind of the idea. So here we're seeing Cyrus's ghost, and so he's not willing to pass on. So we need to figure out what the problem is. If we can fix it, then his ghost will be able to rest in peace. But yeah, it's a very Japanesey kind of thing, and Cyrus is Frog's friend, so of course we want him to be able to pass on peacefully. So, you want to return to 600 AD this time, and then go to the basement and clear out all the enemies here. These sentries have a pretty nasty death counter in which they'll either use Grudge, which is a physical attack, and that's not too bad, otherwise they have MP Buster, which will then steal all the MP of the person who attacked them. Now it's random which ability they're going to use, but most likely in every encounter you're going to lose all your MP with whoever you would hit them last with. So, that being said, my recommendation would be to just go ahead and just use somebody who can hit them with one shot and just take them out at the beginning of combat and just deal with it. You're going to end up losing your MP every single time. So my recommendation is to use Magus and just use Fire 2. Most of the enemies here in the basement and stuff throughout this whole dungeon are going to be vulnerable to fire. So if you use Fire 2, you'll actually do additional damage. You'll guarantee kill them every single time, and you'll also pretty much guarantee that you're going to lose all your MP. So what you can do is you can actually just use some regular ethers. You should have a whole bunch of them at this point left over just from throughout the game that we haven't really been using them. So now is a great time to use some of those up. We just need like 8 MP in order to cast Fire 2. So if you just use a single ether in between every fight, you can guarantee you can kill all these guys no problem. So by doing it with one hard-hitting attack with one character, you're just guaranteeing that only one of your guys is losing MP, as opposed to just suddenly whittling them down with other attacks, or having to rely on just your regular attack or something like that. It's just not worth it. So something else you can do, though, if you are willing to extend the fight just a little bit, these guys actually do hit pretty hard. If you're willing to extend the fight just a little bit, you can also charm them with Ayla, because they, when charmed, they will give you Turbo / Hyper Ethers, which are really nice items. Those actually, you can buy them for 10,000. They're one of the more expensive items in the game, and they restore 99 MP for you. So they're pretty rare. And these enemies don't respawn either, by the way. So once you kill them, then they're gone. Kind of like the beasts that we fought in 12,000 BC. It's kind of like that because these guys don't come back. So we only have one opportunity to charm them, because after you kill them, they're gone forever. So if you are interested in charming them at all, then I would recommend that you just go ahead and do that. I kind of got a little bit lazy, and so I only charmed like half these guys, but definitely an option. Also, just be warned that their attack is pretty nasty. I do recommend you kill them as soon as possible. If you kind of drag it out with some not as hard-hitting abilities, you'll probably end up having some of your characters get wiped out pretty quickly. Alright, so next thing to know about this dungeon is don't open any chests. Don't do it. If you do it, I'm gonna be sad about you, so don't do this right here. See, I'm sad. Do you feel my sadness through this video and my commentary? I'm very sad commentary right now. I'm very disappointed in this gameplay. What was this guy thinking, right? You know, what was he thinking? I'm sort of thinking this whole dungeon is haunted, though, so my excuse is the fact that the chest was calling out to me, right? Just voices in the background. It's all like, open me! And I just had to comply, you know? I didn't have a choice in the matter, guys. The chest told me to. I didn't want that chest to have any lingering regrets. So anyways, you can go ahead and charm these guys. Just be really careful to be ready to heal with Frog, or whoever heal you have anyways, because their grudge attack is actually, it's pretty awful. So once you are ready to finally finish them off, just try and get everybody healed, especially Magus, because you want to make sure that he has enough health that he can survive their counterattacks. Because if they all use grudge at the same time, it can be kind of awful. But once you have cleared out all the monsters here, you want to leave the northern ruins and head into Choras Village. Now, there is a building here that is called the Tavern. Otherwise, I think it's called the Cafe in older versions of the game. But go ahead and enter this building, and there is the soda drinking man right here. You want to speak with him, and he says that his carpentry tools have been stolen, so he can't get to work. So next, you want to head back to the Epic and then go to 1000 AD. And in the same position as that building, there is the Choras Inn. You want to go there and speak with the soda drinking man in there. This one is a little bit more, I'm assuming it's his descendant, but he's a little more good for nothing. He's just here drinking all the time, and he doesn't actually get any work done. So if you speak with him, though, he'll say that his wife at home has his carpentry tools. So if you want to borrow some, then you can go back to his house and borrow them from his wife. So his house is located in the bottom left corner of Choras, and it's just called Residence. And inside you'll see his wife, who is lamenting about her good-for-nothing husband, and how he's never getting any work done, and he's just drinking all day long and everything. And so, but then she's just like, oh yeah, sure, just take his tools. And we learn from the kid that he's definitely, his father is indeed a carpenter for a living, is what he does. So we're taking his carpenter tools because he told us we could borrow him. But so the wife just goes along with it. But I feel like this is a little bit strange. I feel like if I was her, I'd put my foot down and be like, no, I'm not giving away your tools. You need to get to work. You know? This feels like a bad decision on her part, but also on ours. Like, I don't know. I feel like we're just enabling him, you know, in his lifestyle choices. So return to 600 AD. You want to enter the tavern, speak with the soda drinking dude, who will then take the tools and then go back to his house. And then you want to go to his house, which is the residence in the same position that it was in 1000 AD. And then you can hire him there to work on the ruins. Now, this will only work if you have cleared out the monsters from the ruins like I did earlier in this video. So every time that you want him to work on it, you just have to make sure all the enemies are dead. They don't respawn or anything, so once they're dead, then he will work on a portion of the northern ruins. So just by clearing out the dungeon and then coming back here and hiring him over and over again, then you can go ahead and clear out more floors. So one thing I always thought was weird about this side quest is the fact that, like, you know, the house is in the same location, right? And we already know from other quests in the game that typically descendants of, you know, ancestors are in the same locations. Like, that was true in the last side quest we did in the last video, is that the dudes in the manors, the Mayor Manor and the Elder House in Poor Village are the same people, like the same family, just over 400 years. So it's probably likely this is the same case. We have a carpenter in the past and a carpenter in the future, so it's probably his descendant. So anyways, we borrowed the tools from the good-for-nothing, lazy descendant. We brought it to his ancestor in the past, and the ancestor in the past, it was his tools that were stolen initially before. So my question is, because we also know that a lot of objects that will last for hundreds, if not millions of years in this game. So if you put something somewhere, then we can grab it millions of years later. There's no wear and tear or anything. So are the tools the same tools? So did we get them from the future and bring them to the past, and then his descendants inherited them and they're the same tools, which is this weird chicken and the egg conundrum. Like, where did those tools originally come from, right? So if there really is this loop and those tools are just awesome, apparently they're lasting for thousands of years, being used like perpetually over and over again forever. Like, those are some awesome tools, quality craftsmanship. They just don't make things like they used to, right? So, but you know, I know what you're thinking. You're like, that's a temporal paradox. There's no way they would do something silly like that. But this game has a precedent of doing weird things and bending the rules severely in different situations. In fact, we're going to be doing that in this very dungeon with some of the chests later on. Those chests that you don't want to open if you don't want to be sad. So speaking of being sad, the enemies here in this whole section can be charmed to get a whole bunch of elixirs. All the enemies here can be charmed to get elixirs. However, the Fallen will also drop a lapis instead if you don't charm them. then they will drop a lapis defaultly that you can then get after combat. So if you are going to charm somebody, definitely charm the Flesh Reapers would be the ones I would focus on. Those enemies, by the way, have a pretty nasty attack that will reduce your HP to 1, but they also have a bunch of other attacks as well. So, and they're usually in these like clusters with multiple guys. So I feel like they make a pretty nasty combination, and they can kill you pretty easily. I feel like it's just like a nastier battle compared to News that we faced before. But you can counter this relatively easily by having somebody like Frog just on standby ready to use Star Heal. So as soon as one of your characters gets down to 1 HP, then immediately follow up with a heal just to keep them above death, just real quick. And then that would allow you to just, as long as you don't have 1 HP, that's kind of the thing you're watching out for. So usually what I like to do is I'll just charm like 2 of them real quick, and then I'll finish them off, because otherwise it can escalate and get out of control. Again, if you're going to charm them though, I would recommend you start out with the Flesh Reapers, because the Fallen you can also charm an elixir off of them, but they also will, Fallen/Defuncts. You can charm an elixir off of them, but they also will drop a lapis if you don't charm them. So anyways, if you have multiple enemies, charm the Flesh Reapers, the red ones, and then if you have to leave one behind, then leave one Fallen would be what you want to do. And just as a reminder for what I mean by that is that for each enemy you can only get up to 1 drop per enemy in combat. So for example, right now we have 2 Fallen in this particular combat. If I charm one of them, it'll give me an elixir instead, but if I kill both of them, they give me a lapis. But I can only get up to 1 lapis per enemy type per combat. So if I charm 3 enemies, 2 of the Flesh Reapers and 1 of the Fallen, then I'll end up with 3 elixirs and 1 lapis at the end of combat by only charming 3 enemies. So that's part of what I mean by that is, if you're going to choose, that's the way you want to do it. By the way, as far as the elements I'm using, you can use like really hard-hitting single text to try and take out one of these guys at a time, or just have like Frog keep using other attacks, for example, something I could do. However, it is just a little bit rough. It's just nicer to use fire if you can, because these guys are vulnerable to fire. They will, all the undead, by the way, in the game will absorb shadow and it'll heal them instead. So instead I'm using their vulnerability to kill them really easily. So Fire 2 isn't really like the greatest ability in the world, but very good against these enemies. It is a little weird, like this is Frog's side quest, but the best characters for this one by far is going to be Magus and Luca, because all the enemies are super vulnerable to their abilities. I don't think any of the undead qualify as magical creatures. I don't think so. I don't think that he actually gets any bonus from his particular attack. So this side quest, ironically enough, Frog doesn't actually have anything super specific to offer for this. That's like a reason why you want to use him. I am, just because I'm using each character for their own side quest, but I don't think that Frog has anything to offer for this particularly. So once you've cleared out all the monsters, you want to return to Choras Village and hire the carpenters to fix up the next section and repair it. And this also brings up a very important question. Why are carpenters doing stonework? It's kind of out of their realm of expertise, right? You see, more accurately, it should be called general contracting tools, right? Instead of carpentry tools. Although I realize the reason for this is because they would be too long of a title. Also, it just doesn't roll off the tongue quite the same way. And as we all know, all the names in this game can only be 5 characters long. No, I'm just kidding. But in reality, though, they do have shorter names for a lot of the items and enemies and stuff in this game for the Super Nintendo version, but for the DS remake, they do have extended names. So they're just called plain tools, I think, for the old version of the game, and then they're called carpentry tools, just in the remake. For this next phase, all we have to do is just speak with Cyrus's ghost by interacting with the grave on the far left, and as you have this nice emotional scene, just make sure you have Frog in your party. One other quick note about this that's kind of fun is if you have Magus in your party, then he will hide his face from the Masamune when it's being charged up. He's all like, the light, it burns. Once again, though, I do think it's interesting that we have these rivals, like, in the same party. Also interesting that here we have this, like, emotional scene with Cyrus's ghost, and then meanwhile his murderer is right there. Awkward. guys. So once you have successfully upgraded the Masamune, which is now, by the way, Frog's most epic weapon, so instead of being utter garbage, it's actually pretty good now. Once you have upgraded that, we want to return to Choras and hire the dudes out once again. Now, just so you know, too, I've mentioned this before, but this is totally a gold sink. Yes, another one. Don't mind me, I'll just take an arbitrary amount of gold off you so you are inevitably paying for everything you're collecting from the Northern Ruins. Oh, that's how it works. I actually really like this side quest. One of the things that bugged me is I wish that I had the opportunity to return the borrowed tools. So at the end of the side quest, we don't return the tools in the past to the dude in the future. I realize he's just a lazy bum and he's probably not going to do any work anyways, even if we were to return him. But it's just kind of the principle of the thing. Like, I have a real pet peeve about, like, you know, I've had people borrow stuff from me in the past and they just never pay me back, or they never return the book, or whatever the thing is. And I always feel like I would rather, if people are going to do that, at least just tell me, like, hey, can I have this? I would much rather they were just being upfront with me and stuff, rather than, if they're going to borrow it, actually borrow it and return it, because that's what we agreed on, you know? So I just feel like it's a matter of, like, honoring the other person. Like, it's borrowing stuff is just kind of like, I feel like it just ends up leading to, like, tension in relationships and stuff like that. It's just not good. I don't know. So when I borrow stuff from people, I'm always, like, very insistent about, like, trying to return it as soon as possible, both because I don't want to be that guy. Not really because I want, like, not because I'm trying to avoid being indebted to them or anything like that, but more so just the principle of the thing. Like, if I'm gonna borrow something from somebody, I want to be really straightforward about it. And so the point being, like, for this side quest, I actually don't mind that, like, we get all the rewards, like, pretty early on and everything like that. Complete the side quest, the tools are still borrowed, and the side quest is done. But I wish there was even just one more step that you could optionally do, and all it is just dialogue, but you return the tools. It's like, oh, thanks, man, for returning it. I would actually love that, and I would totally do that, even though it's not necessary, even though there's no reward for it at that point. I would totally do it just for me personally, and I would feel better about it. I actually really dislike that we don't have the option. Along those same lines, another thing I think would be really cool in this is, you know how, like, in the last side quest with Luca, where, you know, you do something nice for the people in the past, and then the descendants in the future now are much more generous and stuff? So I think it would be cool if the same thing happened with this quest, where you help out the carpenters in the past, and then, like, they have a much better work ethic or something, or they're just like, man, you know, like, wow, working together was awesome and all this stuff, and then you go back to the future, and now that guy is not a bum anymore at all, and he's actually responsible, and he just let you borrow the tools, like, in this new timeline, just to be a bro, and he's being nice, and then you give him the tools back. It's like, wow, thank you so much for doing that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and he just changes everything. He's like, I'm gonna go back to work, and then the wife's all happy with him. It's, you know, I think that'd be an awesome ending. Like, I would feel so much better about it, and, like, even if that's it, no reward, no nothing, I would love that ending so much better, because it's just like everything works out for the better and everything, but also just, like, I would feel good for having made that decision. Even if there's no other reward, just the text. He's like, thank you so much. I would actually be very pleased with myself. So what do you guys think in the comments? Like, let me know. Would you enjoy just that ending? Like, even though there's not really a monetary reward, it's just text. Like, I think that most people actually would enjoy that kind of ending. One of the aspects of that I find interesting in what I just suggested is the whole concept of already having the rewards completed. Like, we've already done all the things. So as far as from a pure, like, speedrunning standpoint, like, yeah, I would just end the side quest at that point, but otherwise I kind of like the idea of just an optional extra step you can do just for the sake of being a good person. I think, and as long as you have dialogue that actually, like, makes you feel accomplished, and you're like, yeah, I'm glad I did that, you know? I think that's actually cool that the text is your reward, and JRPGs can kind of pull that off. A lot of other games don't really do that so much. JRPGs are known for doing that kind of thing a lot. But what do you guys think of that? Do you think that's a good idea, and, like, would you totally do that if you had that option? Like, even though that's your only reward, like, would you do that at that point when there's no actual, like, items you're getting or anything? I think most people would. I think just for storyline purposes, I think most people would be willing to do that. They're like, oh yeah, I want to see this, at the very least their first playthrough, and I think that most people would actually enjoy it, and they'd be glad that they did it. So what do you guys think in the comments? What do you guys think? I'm interested to hear your guys' perspective, if that's a good enough motivation for most people, and I think it is. Like, it's part of the whole enjoyment of a JRPG anyways, is just having stuff like that. Now, in this next area, by the way, I'm fighting a bunch of the souls, otherwise known as base. It's a new enemy here, and if you wait long enough, they'll actually combine with the fallen/defuncts, and it creates fallen plus soul, otherwise called departed in the older versions of the game. And that's a new type of enemy. They're pretty rough. They have a lot of HP and stuff like that. They're vulnerable to fire. One of the things that's annoying about that is after you do that, then when they combine like that, they heal, so you have to fight them all over again, basically. But they're pretty rough, and they have some kind of nasty attacks. However, something to know about that is this is the only place in the entire game, it's just those two rooms, or that last room right there, is the only place in the entire game where you can find them. And so that's the only way you can get that combined enemy. And because it's important to point out, because if you're trying to 100% your bestiary, then you want to make sure you wait for that to happen and then kill one of them. So I got to kill some souls and some fallen by themselves, and you want to kill the combined one to get that entry in your bestiary. So once you've killed all the enemies in the Northern Ruins in 600 AD, you want to interact only with the sealed chests and say, no, you don't want to open them. What this will do is it will upgrade the contents of the chests so we can open them again later. So that's the only chest you want to interact with. Don't interact with any other chests at all. Next, you want to go to 1000 AD, and now go ahead and open everything. So first go to the left side, open the chest here for a Turbo Ether, as well as grab the magic capsule that is next to Cyrus's grave. Next, go over to the right side, and there is a strength capsule that is on the bottom left corner of the stairwell area, and then go on to the next area and open up all the chests here. So again, because we interacted with these sealed chests in the past, but we didn't actually open them, then it charged up the items. When we open them in the future, they are a higher quality item. So I'm just going to fast forward through this, but yes, in 1000 AD at this point, open up everything, and that includes all of the consumable chests as well. Now those ones, one of the funny things about them for this quest is you can open up all the chests twice, because you can open them up in the future as well as the past, both for the sealed chest as well as the non-sealed chest. So you can get multiple ethers for all of those as well, and these are really nice ones. There's elixirs and turbo ethers here, both of which are really high-end items. And that's why if you open them up in 600 AD first, you're sad. It's because you can open them up multiple times. This whole game is so ridiculous about that. Like, I spit in the face of your causality. But then again, I guess the whole game's about trying to change fate anyway, so I guess it kind of makes sense. It's the whole principle of the thing. So if you charge all of the sealed chests in the past, and then you open them all everything in the future, including all the regular chests, then after that, go back to 600 AD and now open everything again, including the regular chests. You can get double the elixirs and stuff, as well as you can get a lower end version of all the items that we just got the upgraded version of a second ago. So that concludes all of the Northern Ruins side quest stuff, although again, I just wish we could return the borrowed tools. So as the end result of that, all the items we got, we have the upgraded Masamune, which is now Frog's most epic sword, really good. It also makes the hero's badge still really awesome again. That'll increase Frog's regular attack damage. However, if you're going to be using text with him, you're better off with strength increasing items. Now for armor, we also got the Moonbeam armor, which is a really good one that gives magic defense, super good on characters like Robo. However, we also got the Nova armor, which is the lower end one that it upgraded from, and that's actually still worthwhile because it has status protection on it, which is kind of rare. Both of these items can only be used on dudes, but they are both really good items. That's just great. We have a couple swords for Chrono. The Suzuku in particular is a little bit nicer than the Swallow. It doesn't have the speed though, so that's kind of sad, but it does crit really hard. Sadly enough though, it actually has a reduced critical chance than other swords. Chrono's defaultly has 10% chance for crit, and then this particular weapon will actually reduce it down to 7%. So that's one of the sad things about that. Sort of the opposite kind of feeling is Marl's Valkyrie bow. What it does is it has a 20% chance to crit, even though it doesn't really say it in the tooltip or anything, but it's a very nice thing. It makes her crit quite often, and she hits really hard. So it does make it kind of nice. This is one of her better weapons that she can get in the game. I actually really like the way the items are divvied up for these side quests because it just doesn't feel like it's too cut and dry, I guess. Like, this is Frog's side quest, but we're not just getting only upgrades for Frogs, we're getting upgrades for all of our characters, and it feels good. We're getting stuff, and we're getting more powerful, and it's awesome. We're doing the side quests, and it's totally worthwhile. We're getting a lot of really good items, and I think it's interesting that we're getting we got Frog's endgame weapon, we got the Masamune got upgraded, but we also got Marl's endgame weapon and one of Chrono's. So Chrono actually has one more upgrade for one of the other side quests that's even better, but still just the fact that he got his third best sword in the game doing Frog's side quest for Chrono, and I think that's interesting that they chose to do it that way. So from here on out, you can speak with the various people in town if you like, and they all have interesting. Their dialogue has changed, now the history has changed, so especially in 1000 AD, it's very different. In particular, the one I think is funny is the woman that's in the Mayor's Manor who says, before she was all oh man, we have ghosts haunting the Northern Ruins, isn't it exciting? And now she's all oh, I wish there was ghosts haunting it or something. It would be so much more exciting if that was the case. Also, by the way, there is a chick that is in the tavern who was saying that before, or Chorus Inn, I guess, who was saying that she was talking about how Cyrus's ghost was in the Northern Ruins, but now her dialogue has changed, and she's explaining that, Cyrus was killed by Magus back in the year 600, and also that Glenn was the one who defeated Magus, and it was, it's all the story of true friendship and all this stuff, and it's we have Magus in our party, listening to this as she's boasting about how Frog killed him, which is not what actually happened at all, but it's just weird because we have Magus in our party as she's boasting about this. Awkward. So before we wrap up everything, there is one more thing we can do. You want to head over to Denadoro Mountains in 600 AD, and this is the area where we were like chasing after Tada when he was originally looking for the Masamune. So we found Masamune at the top of this whole mountain. So back here, I was mentioning before that there was an optional item that you could get with Frog later on in the game. So now we're finally ready for that time. So now that we finally have the upgraded Masamune, what you want to do is just run through this whole area. You should be able to just ignore all these enemies or kill them really fast. Doesn't really matter. I would ignore most of them or just take them all out with fire too. But once you finally get back to this far side where there is a freelancer across the way that's throwing rocks at you, you want to have Frog as the leader of your party, and then you can just sit still with him and have him get smacked with rocks a couple times. A few of them will hurt him, but then after a little bit he will actually catch one of them, and he'll have this dialogue where he's explaining where he's not the same Frog he once was before. So epic, so victorious! Now, again, in order to make this work, you have to have Frog as the leader of your party, and you have to have the Masamune equipped. Now this will then get you the golden gemstone, otherwise called the gold rock in older versions of the game, and while equipped on Frog as an accessory, it will then unlock the Master Moon, otherwise known as the Grand Dream Triple Tech. Now this is a pretty nice Triple Tech. It is a little bit weird because it's dependent on the amount of HP missing, but it can do some pretty crazy amount of damage, but I don't really feel like it's super useful. One interesting thing to note about it is because the Triple Tech is called the Master Moon in the DS remake, that is a little bit interesting because that is also the name of an item that you can craft in Chrono Cross, the sequel, that is forged by using the Masamune as well. So it's like an endgame item that is really epic in that game as well. So it's just an interesting choice though, because it's like the name of a technique, but it's also the name of a weapon in the sequel. So that concludes all of Frog's side-questy stuff, so you want to return to the end of time and then speak with our next character so we can figure out the location of our next side quest, which is what I'm going to be doing in the next video. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this and found it helpful, be sure to throw a like on it, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content just like this. As always, stay awesome, have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time.